something that a lot of people are curious about and wonder, you know, how do these things happen? So I've been writing scripts for a little over 5 years now, and I have this list so that I can cheat off of it and tell you. So far, it's something, I don't know, over 150 episodes that I've written.
Wow.
Generally, I've been very fortunate where I get to work on a show for the entire show, so I'm very fortunate with that. Some of the shows that I've written for, TV series, they're so excited about this, can I tell you? Angelic Layer, that was actually the first show that I did adaptations for. Sister Princess, Hello Kitty's Animation Theater. So if anybody was at that previous panel, then you heard about that. I wrote most of Ma Barajo. I did not write the first 4 episodes of Ma Barajo. That was something that was done in a rush, and the director got the scripts for the first 4 episodes, didn't really like them very much, but had to go ahead and use them, and so she hired me to finish the series. Go Danner, I was the writer for the entire series on Go Danner. And Michelle, which is a wonderful, wonderful Korean children's show, I was actually the 3rd writer on that project, so I only wrote the last 7 episodes, but it's a fantastic children's show. And I don't know if anybody can ever find it. Michelle, it came out about 2 years ago, it was a great show. Comic Party Revolution. I did some test scripts for Sergeant Frog. That's gone through about 5,000 different writers so far. Oh My Goddess, Season 2. And also I'm currently the writer on The Wallflower. I did not write the first volume on that because I was still working on Oh My Goddess 2 and could not do 2 scripts at one time. So that's kind of a rundown of the anime stuff that I've worked on. So far, the scripts that I've written have all been for ADV films, so even though I've worked as a voice actor for different companies, as far as script writing, I've only done that for ADV. I've done a lot of these panels where there have been bunches of writers who have worked at different companies all around the country, so what I've learned from that is that the process is pretty similar wherever you go as far as adapting the scripts. As something that I mentioned, this topic came up briefly at the panel just a little bit earlier, but the translation that is done for a show, there's only one translation that's done. So that same translation goes to the person who is doing the subtitles for the show as the translation that goes to the person who's doing the script adaptation. So that all originates from, they don't need to translate it twice. This one particular aspect that I'm about to mention is something that I only know for sure is done at ADV, and whatever anybody else's practices, I don't know. But at ADV, every single script is gone over by a minimum of 2 translators. Many shows have 3 and 4, like I was mentioning earlier, Excel Saga had 4 translators. So depending upon the complexity of the show, but every show has at least 2 translators, one of whom is a native English speaker and one of whom is a native Japanese speaker. And that's just to try and catch all the different subtleties that are in there. And I'm sure, let me ask a question here. Is anyone in here even moderately bilingual in any 2 languages? I mean, obviously, I guess you speak English, but anybody speak some? Okay, that's cool. Okay,
a little cool. Japanese.
So I'm sure you can appreciate that whatever language you were talking about, if you gave a book or a play or TV script or anything to 5 different people, what you would get back from the 5 different people would not be identical, right? There would be subtle differences in the way someone phrased something, you know, so, and that's even more, bless you, excuse me, I'm sorry, more exemplified, I think, in doing translations between 2 different languages like Japanese and English, because they're very, very dissimilar in the syntax and the way that sentences are constructed, parts of sentences that are understood and things like that. English is based on a lot of other languages. It's primarily a Germanic language, but obviously heavily influenced by Latin and a lot of other things. So it's fairly easy a lot of times if you know just a little bit of another language, like a little bit of Spanish or a little bit of German or something, you can kind of work out what they're saying. And it's a little more tricky with Japanese. So that kind of lends itself to a little bit more of the interpretive part. But in any case, what I want to put out there is that my main focus with any project that I'm working on is the intent of the show. So for all the projects that I've personally worked on, and I would say this is true in the vast majority of things that are currently being done as far as anime, generally the writer wants to convey the original intent. So you do have certain exceptions like Shin-Chan, which is a show that I've worked on several episodes as an actor. It's a super fun show. What's coming out in English doesn't really have anything to do with what they're saying in Japanese. Other than that, it's funny and it's naughty. And so in that respect, that it's a show that's goofy and there's a lot of potty humor in it, that's pretty much the same, although we've added in all the Paris Hilton jokes and all of that stuff. Yeah, it's a super long show. It was a lot of fun. So that's kind of an extreme example where the things have been changed up. Ghost Stories, the show distributed by ADV. I didn't work on it at all, so I don't have any personal stories that I can relate to about that, but I know that the Japanese licensors were having a hard time selling that to anybody in the US, just the type of humor it was and everything wasn't really going over. And since they wanted to sell the show, they said, do whatever you can with it to get this show out there and people will see it. And it's not, really a literal translation. So yes, there are, I know, a few examples where things are changed on purpose, but for the main bulk of the shows, that's not the case. And so definitely the shows that I've worked on, it's all been a point of conveying whatever the original intent is. And so by intent, I don't necessarily mean that you're getting an exact verbatim literal translation, but that hopefully whatever experience the original audience had, everybody who watches that show should get the same experience from it. I very firmly believe that. So the trickiest part where that comes into play, obviously, is comedy. And we all know that if you have to explain a joke or, tell you why something is funny, it's not funny anymore. So that's kind of a tricky area, obviously, when it comes to comedy, and if you're using cultural references, believe me, this is done between every culture and every language. If you had a show and it was made in America and they're doing a Spanish version, that's going to be shown in Venezuela, I'm sure that, some kind of extreme U.S. reference that they don't know about in Venezuela, they're probably going to change that to something people there would understand. So it's not just something that only American producers are doing certain changes to shows that they're taking from Japan, and no one else in the whole world ever does that. In the previous panel, Sammy and I mentioned as a reference for that, South Park. She's seen South Park in Japanese. Sammy speaks Japanese. Japanese South Park, it's nothing like original South Park. I said, is it still funny? She said, yes. I said, there you go. So anyway, so that's kind of the point of intent. For example, I was working recently on Oh My Goddess Season 2, and I can promise you that Keiichi will always be a dork. It's just a fact of life. Do you guys have any questions before I go forward with anything about the processes or whatever?
What do you have to do to become an ADR scriptwriter?
That is a really tricky question, and that's one that I've had before, and thankfully I've had the question about becoming an ADR scriptwriter. ADR is like automatic dialogue replacement, by the way, and it's done in every single movie that's ever made. But anyway, yeah, funny thing is I kind of get the same response from a lot of the other scriptwriters. You sort of have to already be in the industry doing something, like as a director or as an actor, because something that I found pretty much all of my fellow writers and actors agree on, and directors, if you're in the studio and you're working on a script and it was done by someone who doesn't have any studio experience, boy, can you tell. And there's just something about having worked in that process and being familiar with it that really lends itself. I mean, I have worked on scripts before as an actor that people have written that have no booth experience, and